Hey guys, so I used to be an atheist, and when I say I was an atheist, what I mean is I believed in naturalism. I believed in materialism, physicalism, that the world consisted of only physical, material things governed by the laws of nature. I would have said that we're just meat suits in motion. I believed in Carl Sagan's famous statement of faith. You know, the cosmos is all that there is, or ever was, or ever will be. You know, and over the next 20 to 30 minutes, I'd like to draw from my personal experiences, having been kind of in a very real sense deconverted out of naturalism, and by allowing the evidence to impact me and eventually lead me to Christianity. And I'd love the opportunity to show you why Christianity is the best explanation for the world around us. And we're going to do that in this episode of To The Point. I'm Jon Noyes, and I'm so glad that you guys have joined me. I am live, and I see that you guys are logging in here. And I want to remind you that if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to type them into the chat. I'll try to go back and answer them for you, at least a few of them. So first, before I begin, if Christianity is true, that means it's an accurate view of reality, the way that the world really is. And if this is the case, then all human beings are really made in the image of God, and they all have to live in the world that God made, even if they don't believe in God. If these things are true, that means that the atheist has to live in tension with reality at some point. And this was true of me as I was an atheist. I was living in tension. You see, keep in mind during the course of our time, reality, it's what you bump into when you don't take the world around you seriously. It has a way of getting our attention. Sooner or later, the naturalists, the atheists who deny God's world, reality, they're gonna bump into that world as it really is. You know, they're gonna have to affirm certain features of reality, the world around them, that make no sense given their worldview of naturalism. And sometimes they're gonna do it without even realizing it. And like I said, I know this is true from my just personal experience. This is what happened to me. I bumped into reality in three separate ways. Okay, I bumped into stuff. I call this the bump of stuff. I also bumped into the bump of bad, and the third is the bump of me. So starting with the bump of stuff, it's really simple. This is not controversial. Stuff exists, right? Stuff exists. The atheist, nobody can really deny the existence of stuff. But here's the question. These are the questions that you got to ask. Why is there stuff? Why is there something rather than nothing? Where did everything come from? What caused the beginning of all this stuff? The universe. What caused the beginning of the universe? Yeah, I like to say these are the biggest questions of life. These are the big holy cow questions I found myself asking as I would gaze up at the stars at night. These are the big holy cow questions that began me ultimately questioning naturalism. And it's a great place to start a conversation with folks that are in your life who maybe don't share your worldview, who are maybe naturalists or say that they're atheists. Let me give you an example of how this played out in the tactical conversation I had. I was sitting somewhat recently, in the last maybe 10 years or so, I was sitting with my sister in her apartment in Boston with her boyfriend, now fiance, and their best friends. And one of them asked me the question I love getting. It's the best question anybody can ask me. It's what evidence led you to believe God exists? Well, my response to them was three questions actually. I asked, do things exist? To them, do you think things exist? And their response, of course things exist. Do you think things that exist have always existed? Well, I don't think so, they said. You know, looking around the room, you can point to the table or the cat. You can point to the car outside. You can point to the paintings on the wall or the television on the bureau. Have these things always existed? No, I don't think so. Well, then the third question is, what caused them to come into existence? And when I was sitting with my sister and her friends, I was met with silence. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a philosopher. I don't know these things. I don't know. But rationally, there's only really two choices, right? Everything either has to come from something or no thing, if you think about it, right? And who in his rational rights has the right to say nothing caused the world? Even if it's possible, what's most reasonable? This puts the atheists in a very interesting place because they don't want to say something caused the universe, because the minute they do, their naturalism is dead. This is where I started as a naturalist, because I tried to explain the existence of the stuff, and I didn't have anything available to me to adequately explain it. And if I appealed to something caused the universe, that something had to have certain qualities in order to create everything, right? That something had to be powerful. It had to be creative. It had to exist outside of time, space. It had to be immaterial. And before I knew it, and before the atheist knows it, that something that they want to posit as the creator of the universe starts to look an awful lot like the G word. And they don't want to say that word. That's the bad word, God. And so instead, to avoid the G word, at least for me, I'd want to posit the nothing option. But as I pressed into it and tried to learn from the world around me, it seems like this was really unreasonable. And here's the main point to the bump of stuff here. I'm not going to sit here. I'm not going to argue that it's impossible to get something from nothing. I think it is impossible to get something from nothing, but I don't have to do that with the naturalist. Keep in mind, it's the atheist or the naturalist, the materialist who wants to trade unreasonable. After all, we're the unreasonable ones. The Christians are the unreasonable ones. At least that's what I used to say. You are the unreasonable one. I'm a purveyor of reason. According to me as an atheist, and according to them, they have the most reasonable position. So I'm just going to ask the atheist, what are the chances? What are the chances of nothing producing everything? And it's like this. This is the way I think of it. It's like, think of your dream car, right? Mine right now currently happens to be the Tesla X. Like, I would love to be able to buy my wife a Tesla X. Those cars are so sweet. And imagine if you came home, or if I came home and packed in my driveway after a long day of work is a brand new mirror black Tesla X. It's wrapped in a bow and it has my name on one of those huge big name tags, John. And then I walk inside and my wife's in here and she's prepping the meal. And I say, babe, did you see the car on the driveway? It's so cool. It's amazing. Thank you so much. Where'd you get it? Can we afford it? And she's like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, well, there's a car in the driveway. Where'd it come from? Oh, it just appeared out of nowhere. It was crazy. It was the craziest thing. Stuff like that. It happens all the time. Stuff like that never happens. Things like that don't happen all the time. Nothing comes from nothing. If things came from nothing, then science itself would be impossible. Now, as I'm talking about this, I know that you guys are starting to recognize it. This is the Kalam cosmological argument for the existence of God. It's just when I was wrestling with it as an atheist, I didn't know it had a formal meaning, or a formal name, rather. And when I say nothing, I want to talk about nothing for a minute, because sometimes this word's been called into question. When I say nothing, I don't mean the so-called nothing of Lawrence Krauss. I'm not talking about a quantum vacuum. Even that, though, had to come into existence from somewhere, right? Major scientists, Board, Guth, Vilenkin, they've all written on this. When I say nothing, what I mean is the universal negation, no thing. It's that which rocks dream about, is what I'm talking about. That's largely accredited to, I think, Aristotle. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he really said it, though. But that's the nothing I'm talking about. The nothing option, and when we think about it, Kokel brings this up all the time. The nothing option is actually worse than magic. And oftentimes as an atheist, I used to say, oh, you're going to appeal to your magic now, right? It's a short, pithy thing to say to the Christian, right? And it has rhetorical force behind it. But when I started thinking about it, I'm like, wait a second, I'm the one appealing to something worse than magic, because at least on my position, I don't have when a magician pulls the rabbit out of a hat, he's got a magician, he's got himself, he's got the hat, he's got the rabbit. Well, on this view, on the nothing view, this is what Kokel says, he's got no hat and he's got no magician either, just the rabbit, the universe. into existence out of nowhere. Is that reasonable? I don't know. Well, here's the main point to take away from the bump of stuff. Christianity has superior explanatory power when it comes to the existence of the world around us. And when I was honest with myself in pursuit of the answers to those big holy cow questions, my atheism, it just simply fell short, guys. Naturalism can't explain where stuff comes from, but Christian theism, it can. And not only that, it does so in a way that's consistent with our basic intuitions about reality, the world around us. The explanations Christianity and Christian theism they provide, they line up perfectly with the way things really are. And once my presuppositions of naturalism were dropped to the floor, and I availed myself to a supernatural explanation, I realized there was nowhere else to run. There's nowhere else to turn for answers. All effects have causes adequate to explain them. Therefore, Christianity has better explanatory power when it comes to the existence of the universe. So this leads us to the next bump. And this is the one, man. This is the one I raised most often as an atheist when I was debating a Christian. I would have loved to take you out to a coffee or buy you dinner just to bring this objection up. It was my nail in God's coffin, so my coup de grace, my go-to argument to jam down the Christian's throat to make them run away weeping. And consequently, it's the most frequently raised argument against the existence of God. It's the most durable, and in many ways, it's also the most difficult objection to theism. Many of you might know what I'm going to be talking about, right? This is the problem of evil. It wasn't only my go-to argument against God's existence. It was actually a part of my reality as an atheist. I bumped into the problem of evil, the problem of hurt, all the time. The problem of bad was around every corner, even as an atheist. And I was quick on the draw to point that out to whatever Christian would listen to me. Everyone knows that there's something wrong with the world. Everyone knows that the world ain't as it ought to be. It's just not. And this is the bump of bad. But instead of being a problem for the Christian, it ended up being a problem for me as an atheist, and it totally surprised me. So how do we show this? On the other side of this, how do I show that the problem of evil is actually a problem for the atheist? First, as you're watching this, I just want you to dream up in your mind. And if you're an atheist, do this. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to see your comments. I'd love to talk with you about this, because I want you to think up the most morally grotesque thing you can imagine. We always usually go to, Auschwitz, the Holocaust, Mao, Stalin, something like that. If these don't work, think of, sexual slavery, global warming, what secondhand smoke, that might be a thing, gay bashing, who knows, global warming, think whatever you want to go, whatever, lights that candle, whatever's the worst. And then I want you to ask, what do you make of these things? What's our assessment of them? Well, they ain't right, is our assessment, right? These things are wrong. They're bad. They're wicked. They're evil. Not it's just not the way that the world is supposed to be when we're confronted with them, even if it's through fiction in stories. When we're confronted with them, we know that it's not the way that it's supposed to be, and it evokes something in us that just ain't right. The next question, and this is the key question here. This is the important one to be thinking about. When we're just saying that things are wrong, bad, wicked, evil, not how it ought to be, are we describing the actions themselves, or are you describing your own emotions, or maybe a cultural point of view, or our culture condemns X or Y or Z, but there's no ultimate wrong in it? You see, this is the difference between an objective moral standard and a relative moral standard. Morality on the outside as opposed to morality on the inside. And I really want you to see something here, really important. And this is the point to this bump. When I realized this point, everything changed. I experienced a major point of contention in my worldview as an atheist. You see, the problem of evil requires objective morality. This means in order for someone to even bring the problem up, they have to appeal to an objective standard outside of themselves. Evil's out there in some sense. The existence of evil needs to be a detail of the external world out there and independent of our own perspective in order to raise this objection. Some things actually have to be wicked in and of themselves, regardless of my personal opinion about it. At least if you want to raise this objection that these things are true. You know, and that key point leads us to another key point. If relativism's true, then there's no problem of evil. And we talked about relativism last time a little bit. You know, if morality is just my personal preference or my cultural consensus, then there's no problem of evil. On this view, transcendent, objective moral obligations are fictions. You see? Behaviors can be distasteful. You know, that you can unlike them. They can be taboo. Culture might forbid them. But they can't be wrong in any ultimate transcendent sense. So since there's real objective evil in the world, how's the atheist account for it? You know, how did I explain, as an atheist, how did I explain the existence of an objective morality, that things are actually good or bad in and of themselves? And how did I explain objective moral duties, that there are thou shalts and thou shalt nots in a world where everything that exists is just matter in motion? You see, I was the one complaining about evil, but my complaint only made sense if the evil was objective. Things changed for me as I sought that explanation to objective morality. So as an atheist, how did I try to explain the existence of a moral law without a moral law giver? How did I do this? Well, I had to turn to one of two things in my mind. Maybe there's others. I see lots of comments here. Maybe there's others, but I had to turn to evolution or social contract. You know, Darwinian evolution. This is a naturalistic process that causes people to believe certain actions have moral qualities, and those qualities ultimately assist in the propagation of our genes. That's the ultimate purpose. So behaviors assist our propagation. There are lots of problems with that, I think. And for more of that, if you guys go over to str.org, you can read, Kokel has a great article called God, Evolution, and Morality. And check that out. Maybe we can get a link in the comments section for you. But here's the most important thing that we need to know when we're starting to think about this. There's lots of problems, but there's something really important to take away. Is it evil to disobey our evolution? I mean, that makes no sense to me. That's why Darwinian evolution can never solve this problem. In Darwinism, morality is simply a feeling on the inside, amounting to nothing more than personal preference. It's like saying that's morally wrong is akin to me saying I don't like Brussels sprouts. But the problem of evil is a failed obligation on the outside. It's not just a matter of personal preference. Whenever anybody brings this up to me, they're not saying this is just wrong for you or this is just wrong for me. They're bringing it up as if it's a real issue. And then simply, telling a tale about the survival benefits of loving your neighbor isn't enough. Exactly how does that work? How does a mechanistic process produce a moral obligation? In what sense is goodness or badness a physical quality? How can a completely materialistic process, natural selection acting upon genetic variations, random mutations, even if true, how do they produce objective moral obligations? I just don't see it. They can't. Right and wrong, virtue and vice, values and obligations, they aren't material things. But the Darwinian process, it can't make rape wrong. Evolution comes up short. So what about social contract? I got to speed things up here. What about social contract? This is the idea that a group of people, they come together around the same moral code and they agree to live by that moral code and to the moral principles that'll guide that society. When morality is grounded in the social contract, it's just a group of people deciding what's right and wrong for them at that moment. But that's just the consensus of the community. The different communities have different rules. It's just relativism, isn't it? Like, when I'm thinking about it, it's just relativism. And don't miss this. This is the point right here. This is the point. At very best, atheistic naturalism can only give you relativism. And if relativism is true, there's no problem of evil. So what had I been bumping into when I complained about the problem of evil? Where could I turn and to explain these bumps? I only had two choices. The first, I could cling to relativism, or the second, I'd have to get rid of relativism and something else. First, I'd have to cling to relativism. But if that's true, that means I had to drop this objection about real evil in the world. I had to let go of my most potent argument against the existence of God, against the theism in general. But I knew too much about the world around me. I've been living in it too long. I bumped hard into the reality of the things not as they ought to be. Second, I could cling on to the problem of evil, but I'd have to surrender my worldview, since naturalism can't make sense of evil in the world. I couldn't have it both ways. You can't have your cake and eat it too. But friends, it was more than just a tension I was feeling. As I pursued my atheism, trying to live consistently with it, I was led to some very, very dark places very quickly. And even then I knew there was an objective wrongness to my pursuits. This isn't true of every atheist. I'm not saying that. Not every, you can live a moral life and be an atheist. Absolutely. I'm just saying that when I sought to be consistent with my worldview and live that out, my pursuits, some of them were obviously harmful. They were wrong. And this is the bump I just couldn't escape. And this is the reason why my worldview, naturalism, just didn't have the power to explain it. So the main thrust to take away from this bump, the bump of bad, just like with the bump of stuff, a worldview needs to give an adequate explanation of moral reality. Naturalism can explain subjective morality, but that's not what needs explaining. That's not the kind of morality that we appeal to when we bring up the problem of evil. The atheist can't easily deny the problem of evil, but he can't make sense of it either. Not with the resources of his own worldview. He has to go outside of that worldview. Not without borrowing from another worldview. So in short, naturalism just can't make sense of evil or good, but Christian theism can explain both and do it well. Every time that as an atheist, I would bump into bad, something was hitting me, especially towards the end of my atheism. And friends, I came to realize that the problem of evil wasn't just a problem for the Christian. It was a very real problem for me too, as an atheist, and it continues to be a problem for the atheist. But instead of being able to offer any answers by eliminating God, it only eliminates one of the possible solutions. And in actuality, it's really not a problem for the Christian, because the existence of evil is at the center of the Christian worldview. We have an explanation, but more than that, we have a solution to the problem of evil. Man, I wish I could talk a lot longer on this, but time's running low. Man, the moral struggle that I felt was so real, and it's that moral struggle that was so real that led me to the last bump that I'm going to try to go through pretty quickly, because as I wrestled with the problem of evil as of the bump of bad, I wasn't just wrestling with the idea that there was an objective oughtness to the world we live in. It was more than that. It was more than just that idea. I was struggling with good and bad, right and wrong, as I came to the conclusion that everything around me had come from somewhere, someone. I found myself in the middle of an existential crisis. So what's an existential crisis? What do I mean by that? You see, our souls hunger for meaning and purpose, acceptance, unconditional love. These are the basis of a lot of the objections that we're hearing out in the culture today. Love is at the forefront of the cultural conversation. What do we do with our deepest desires, our deep brokenness? What do we do with the soul? What do we do with consciousness? And I think consciousness and the soul, they're a huge part of reality, and we don't talk about them all that often. And I think that these things, not only are they a huge part of reality, I think they're a huge problem for the naturalist, but I don't think it is for the Christian. In fact, I remember reading years and years ago, Daniel Dennett, he's a philosopher of science, I believe. He's probably many things, actually, really smart guy. He's great. Read him, watch his stuff on YouTube. He's fantastic. He's an atheistic philosopher out of Tufts. And he says that consciousness is an illusion. And this is where I think the atheist has to turn to. But this claim by Dennett shows just how much trouble I think the atheists are in. What's an illusion? Think about it. An illusion is when your conscious mind is being appeared to falsely. So then I have to ask the question, do non-conscious things have illusions? Rocks don't have illusions, just like rocks don't dream. Only conscious minds can be appeared to. So if that's true, if consciousness itself is an illusion and only conscious things can have illusions, is the illusion having illusion? This is a perfect example of a self-refutation. Dennett, he's got to presuppose what he's denying in order to deny it. So let me finish with this. I'm wrapping up really quick. I know I'm going way long. I always go long. I'm never to the point. That's okay, I think. 3 things about the soul, I think, that are important. First, souls are real. Your soul is what you're aware of when you introspect. All people know that they have souls. They're aware of them constantly. You're in direct contact with your own soul every waking moment, and you're the only being who is in contact with your soul, by the way. And you're not simply a meat suit in motion because of it. That's the first thing. The second thing, and I think I would have agreed to this as an atheist. I knew there's something wonderful about human beings. I just didn't understand that the wonderful thing has to be our souls. It's the kind of soul we have that makes us special, makes us unique. We all know humans are special. I don't know anybody who would really deny that. Not in their right mind, I hope. We all know that human beings are valuable. That's why we can't just gas Jewish people. That's why we can gas termites, but certainly not people. But as a naturalist, as an atheist, I couldn't ground this in my worldview. On atheism, there's no reason to believe humans are special, and this is where my struggle comes in. You see, part of the external crisis and the main point here is that naturalism reduces us to just simply cosmic junk, biological accidents without a purpose. And I'm not saying that just on my own. Read the naturalists. William Provine, he's now dead. He said that we have no purpose or meaning in life. Richard Dawkins defends the same proposition. You see, on atheism, man is nothing, and this life means nothing except any meaning that you want to arbitrarily give it. Nothing is ultimately valuable. Nothing is ultimately meaningful, and nothing will ultimately satisfy. Our hunger for purpose, our hunger for justice, our hunger for immortality, nothing ultimate matters, and nothing can ultimately satisfy those hungers. No wonder why they call it nihilism, nothingism. Lately I've been talking a lot on suicide. That's been my number one requested talk for the last 2 years, even before COVID. And this is a result of this. As I go all over country, I'm seeing personally that worldviews matter. Our worldview informs us about who we are and ultimately why we're here. And what you believe about those things have real consequences. So the first thing that we know is that we have a soul. We are a soul. And it's only adequate to it's the only way that we can adequately explain consciousness. The second thing, we know that humans are very special. And the third thing everyone knows is that humans are broken. They're not physically sick. They're morally broken, or more specifically, morally to blame, friends. These are the tough truths that I had to wrestle with, and these are where I came. A while ago, I met this French atheist turned Christian. His name's Guillaume Bignon, and he's written a bunch of books, or a couple books. And I talked with him about his conversion from atheism to Christianity, and his major struggle was with why did Jesus have to die? Right? This made no sense to him. Then he said, this is a quote, so I'm going to read it. He said that God reactivated my conscience. That was not a pleasant experience. I was physically crippled by guilt, not knowing what to do about it. And then he realized that that's why he had to die, for him, for me, for the guilt, for the crippling guilt that we have. Even while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. He made him who knew no sin to be sin on our behalf, so that we might become the righteousness of God in him. You see, naturalism can't do this. It can't explain this part of reality. Naturalism can't explain the beauty and the wonder of human beings, and it has no answer for human brokenness. So it has no conclusion or consolation, rather, no consolation in true forgiveness. But Christianity does. Christians do. You see, friends, as an atheist, all I was left with to build my life on was as atheist philosopher Bertrand Russell, he says it, a firm foundation of unyielding despair is what he says. And all I had left was in my view at least, was Dawkins's view of the universe, which is blind, pitiless indifference. But I knew better. I think we all do, even the atheists. I think you know better. Just listen to the way that people talk and watch how they live. And in unguarded moments, I found myself slipping. I had to borrow from another worldview in order to explain reality. Because we have to live in reality. We have to live in the real world. And what's happening here when we do this, right? The same thing that happened to me. We all bump into it. Even atheists, even Christians. I mean, we all bump into it at certain moments. We need that readjustment. We all live in the world that God made. It doesn't matter if you believe in him or not. It's true. So basically, that's my story in a nutshell, 33-minute nutshell. But excuse me, when I wrestled with the world around me, I found atheism wanting. It couldn't make sense of the existence of the world around me and why there's something rather than nothing. It couldn't make sense of the problem of evil. And it couldn't make sense of my own deepest human hungers, especially the pressing problem of my own guilt. But in stark contrast to that, in each of these areas, Christianity has a superior explanatory power. Intellectually, a Christian theism proves to be a much more satisfying answer. Existentially, personally, it's the only answer. It offers the only solutions. So that's what I got. I appreciate you guys hanging in there. Oh boy, lots of comments. I'm going to switch screens and go through some of them and see if we can. I'm going to wind all the way up to the top. I really do appreciate you guys kind of hanging in there with me. It was a little long, but I really wanted to do the 3, not just. I was going to maybe just do 2, but I was feeling incomplete. What universe? Without a universe. Pine Creek, man. I'm glad that you're watching. I've seen Greg. I think Greg came on your show. and talk to you. It was a good conversation. You guys should look it up. Pine Creek and Greg Kokel had a good dialogue. Without a universe, you would not know God. I don't understand that, to be honest with you. So feel free to elaborate. So yeah, interesting. I think that maybe I can't track the conversation right now, but the universe does give us knowledge. Again, this would be a good conversation to have. Does God talk to you? He does. God, of course, God talks to me, Pine Creek. You know this. God talks to me. He speaks to me every day through his word, the word of God, the Bible. It is the inerrant word of God. Of course, God talks to me all the time. He speaks to me through my conscience. The Holy Spirit guides us all. He restrains evil. So yeah, I think God is living and active right now. I experience him. Oh, justice. All right, let's see here. Debate between William Lane Craig, Scott Cleft. This is I'm like picking only Pine Creek comments right now, but I'll get to you guys. I didn't see this debate. Was it worth it? I don't know. I find a lot of the debates are just kind of the same thing, and William Lane Craig does so good at it. I love when he debated Harris, right? When Craig debated Sam Harris, actually on the existence of morals. Harris began by saying that, all his atheist friends said that Craig is the only person who puts the fear of God into them. I thought that was really clever. Harris, I thought, was really entertaining in that debate. Nothing equals nothing. John, yes, that's right. Right? Nothing equals no thing. Right? Nothing. It's I like that. I don't know if Aristotle actually said it, but that which rocks dream about. Recently, somebody has told me that that's just kind of accredited to him without any real tracing back to it. So, but either way, I think it's a good principle. That's right. I mean, it's that which rocks dream about. It's nothing. Yeah. So let's see here. Pulling a rat out of no hat. Yep. This was the example I said. Oftentimes as an atheist, I would appeal to magic on the Christians' behalf, and it's tongue-in-cheek stuff. I mean, I was making fun of them. Ultimately, I was making fun of the Christian for being honest. I was being pithy, trying to get a laugh and jab, at them, trying to. I don't know. Rhetorical force. I thought it was funny. I'd say that the Christian had, your magic sky daddy, But in reality, when I came to the understanding of these issues that I raised in the last 30 minutes or so, that what the atheist has to rely on is worse than magic, because they don't have a magician, they don't have a hat. All they have is a rabbit just appearing out of nowhere, and I think that is a problem for the atheist. Therefore, there's like a whole conversation going here. I'm glad that you guys are all talking back and forth. This is like a great place to do it. Just keep it civil, guys. Don't resort to ad hominems and stuff. I don't see them. I'm just saying. Be sure to comment. That's good, Pine Creek. Pine Creek doesn't believe that the universe came from nothing. What rocks dream of. He believes. I would assume. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, Pine Creek. You could shoot me an email. But I would imagine that you believe, like, you're fall in line with Krauss and his definition of nothing. But that's not what I mean by nothing. I'm not talking about a scientific nothing like Krauss. I'm referring to the traditionally understood philosophical nothing. So I know I'd love to hear what you say. Maybe you've covered that in one of your videos online. But I'd love to hear where you think the universe comes from, if not nothing. But yeah, anyways, let's see here. There's some motion. Things move when okay. You guys have all these conversations. I'm trying to scan for some questions to see if there's anything that maybe you guys had questions about. I love the conversation though, guys. Keep it up. I'm at like 6:14, so I'm like halfway. God permits evil. That does not make it good. That's a good comment. What Atalangelo, is that how you say it? Grasso? Mr. Grasso, I'll say that. And anyways, yeah, God permits evil. That doesn't make it good. That's not how it works, and a lot has to do with the fall, right? But it's also oftentimes the evil that we perceive that's happening to us. We don't have God's eyes, God's purview. God's ways are higher than our ways, and that I know makes some people uneasy. But we don't know the things that God knows, and oftentimes the evil that that's going on around us serve a greater purpose, right? These are but momentary light afflictions, producing in us eternal weight of glory, far beyond all comparison, right? So notice in that scripture right there, Paul is telling us that they're momentary, especially in the view of eternity. Right? We have eternity in view. These are but momentary, and I don't say that. I'm not going to say that when I'm comforting somebody like they're suffering. I'm not going to. Oh, I'm so sorry, but this too shall pass. I don't think that's not really what we want to do, but it doesn't mean it's not true. The principle's not true. And then also notice that Paul's saying that the suffering is actually producing something in us that otherwise wouldn't be there if we didn't go through the suffering. These are but momentary light afflictions, producing us an eternal weight of glory, far beyond all comparison. Eternal weight of glory. God is ultimately through our suffering preparing us for something far more important and glorious than what we're going through, certainly our trials. And if you read the New Testament through, and in the Bible in general, it's throughout, it's a constant theme that our suffering and tribulations and trials, they're not for naught. God uses them. So God uses them in our lives. He uses them to produce in us perseverance, right? That's what Paul says again. He says they produce a perseverance, improving character, and that proven character produces in us a hope that will not disappoint. So suffering and pain and loss actually serve a purpose. It's not for naught. So that's a good comment, Mr. Grasso. I like it. God permits evil. That's a great comment, but that doesn't make it good. I'm a former atheist, now a Christian, and I want to defend my faith and prove Christian. Stephanie, you're amazing. I'm a former atheist, now a Christian, and I want to defend my faith and prove Christianity true. Well, you came to the right place. You need to go over to Stand to Reason. You know what you need to do, actually, is type in your browser after this video is over, training.str.org, training.str.org, and you'll be able to sign up for free courses, STR University, free courses where you can get training at varying different levels. And we're producing and releasing, we're trying our best to do 2 full courses, each one consisting of at least 5 classes. We're trying to do 2 of those every quarter. And so far, there's why apologetics, there's New Testament reliability, there's I think Kokel's done one on the Columbo tactic, defending your faith. Alan Schleman did one on homosexuality, which is just unbelievable. You got to check it out. There's 1 or 2 more that I'm forgetting off the top of my mind. But as a team at Stand to Reason, excuse me, we're doing these, and they're free, totally free to you. So go for the training.str.org and sign up. And if you want more training, you can just go to str.org and check out the blog. There's tons of stuff. But Stephanie, I'm so glad that you were able to tune in. It's great to see you on here, and hopefully you get the training that you need. There's so much out there. If you have any questions, feel free to go to Facebook and private message me. Just look me up, friend me, and shoot me a private message. Remind me who you are, and I'll try to get you some resources too. That's great. Justice and Pine Creek are going at it. You guys are amazing. Good luck. Harmony's our new social media director, and so she's on here too. So when you're seeing Stand the Reason, it's her posting. So she God, Evolution, and Morality. She posted that. So I think it was a Solid Ground, a multi-part Solid Ground by Kokel. It's really, really good. Everything Greg puts out is good. And God, Evolution, and Morality. Yep. Awesome. Here we go. Pine Creek. How do you know a prediction in science applies to all of the universe? That's interesting. I would say, so on Friday nights, I guess it's Saturday mornings, I host a radio program called apologetics.com radio. And it's on KKLA, which is a large Christian radio program out here. And every third Friday or Saturday, depending on how you do it, it's on at midnight. That's why I say that. So it's not for everybody. It's science night, and I host it with this amazing scientist, and she's a rocket science, like literally. She's a rocket scientist. She's unbelievable, and she would say that the laws of physics have to universally apply in order for life to exist, for example. So I don't know. Pine Creek, you should call us in 2 weeks. Give us a call, and it would be great to chat with you about that. Let's see here. Right here, why is rape wrong? Because God said so. Is there another reason? Well, I don't know if it's because God said so, right? Rape is wrong because you're violating another image bearer. They're made in the image of God, and you're causing violence to that image. And we ought not do that, right? We don't do that because people are of infinite value and worth. That's why we don't rape people. It's not because God gave a specific commandment, thou shalt not rape. And that principle of goodness comes from the very character of God, the very nature of God. And so that's why rape is wrong, because you're doing violence to the image of God. I'd ask that of you as a naturalist. Why? What do you mean? I want to know, what do you mean rape is wrong? What do you mean by that? Is it wrong in some sense that it's absolutely wrong, or is it a personal preference to you? Because I'd like to know where you derive your morals from as an atheist. So, but that's a great question, right? Why is rape wrong? When things aren't right and wrong just because God says so. I mean, certainly God gives commands and we follow them. We ought to always follow God's commands. But that's not where our sense of morality comes from, just from his commands. It's expressed in his commands, but we get a sense of ultimate right and wrong. Goodness is derived from the very nature and character of God. That's the firm foundation of which morals are based on. I don't know. You guys can disagree with me if you'd like. I'm open to it. Moral law, yeah. And at least I got one guy agreeing with me here. John, good to see you here, man. Yeah, you agree. I think the atheist's biggest challenge is to explain the moral law from a purely naturalistic world. I had that trouble as an atheist. Listen, man, I'm just trying to be honest with you guys. If you guys get to know me at all, if you guys have me out to your churches to speak or your conferences to speak, if nothing, I'm authentic, I'm real. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to wrestle through life with everybody else. And this is my experience as an atheist. This was my experience. When I met my wife, I was an atheist, and I had just moved to Southern California. I met her actually on my first night in California. My bags were still in the back of my sister's car, and she brought me to a patty, and my wife walked in and completely blew me away. But we started becoming friends. And then eventually, after we started dating, she actually had told me she was a Christian. Like, I spent so much time debating her on stuff, and she oftentimes couldn't answer my objections. So I understand the frustration on the atheist's part. Oftentimes I think we don't have adequate answers to answer the atheist's objection either. That was my experience, at least. I would take people out for coffee or whatnot and argue their worldview with them, and they just couldn't hang, or they just start quoting scripture at me, and I just didn't care. So, I'd be like, get that out of my face. Like, I want to know where this stuff comes from. You're the one who believes in an all powerful, all good, all just God. Well, why does my, 5-year-old cousin have leukemia? Like, where do you get that? And nobody could answer me. But then once I started actually really pursuing the answers pretty in depth, like I started reading, and I started really interacting with some Christian apologists. I listened in the Cocos program, actually. I started listening to Stand to Reason, reading their blog. I actually used to listen to J. Warner Wallace before he was Cold Case Christianity. He was Please Convince Me. And I was listening to his podcasts even before I was a Christian. And hearing these guys actually give these arguments for the existence of God, and they were starting to get me to think. And this was the major contention. One of the major contentions for me was this moral law, the existence of a moral law. As I lived in the world, as I started to get to know my future wife and treat her in a certain fashion, and then the people around me, it was very clear to me that there's a objective moral reality that we all live in. We all have to participate in it. So anyways, John, great. I'm glad that we're in agreement on that. Yes, I focused on relativism, which is like one of my favorite things to speak about. I think it's so relevant to today's culture. I think all of the stuff that we're seeing, whether it be the CRT stuff or all the sexuality stuff, all of this stuff, I think finds its roots ultimately in relativism. And yeah, I'd love to talk more about that. But I talked on relativism last time. Check it out. I'd love to leave comments. I'd love to know what you guys think. Let's see here. I'm still scrolling through. Let's check it out. Pine Creek. If there's no direct questions, if you see some direct questions, just pop them up for me. Don't be shy. I just see a debate between justice. There we go. Question. This is great. What's the evolutionary explanation for the beginning of information, DNA? And is it actually real science? Yeah, you know what? I haven't read an adequate explanation of the information within DNA. Of course, it's going to be random mutation over time, right? Long period of time, random mutation, adaptation to cultural, to environmental changes, moving towards a species survival, would be responsible for that. That's a very simplistic view of it. The science stuff is actually, like, Tim Barnett knows that stuff really, really well. I've read a couple books, Stephen Meyer would be a great guy to turn to for that, of course, and actually he's going to be at our Reality Student Apologetics conferences, which, if you guys have never been to the Reality Student Apologetics conference, I'd love to see you guys there. Make sure you come up and say hi to me. It's not just for students. I mean, the majority of the people will be students, middle school up to early college, but man, we got people from all across the board, or better yet, bring some youth with you. It's a fantastic opportunity to ask somebody like Stephen Meyer that very question. Where does the atheist or the naturalist, where do they come up with an explanation for the amount of information found within DNA? I know he could answer you that, or sometime we've had Doug Axe there before, and he's just unbelievable on this stuff as well. But Stephen Meyer, I think, is going to be with us this year, and we have them all over the country. So if you guys we've got one coming up in Southern California, we've got one in Seattle, we've got one in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Birmingham, Alabama, outside Dallas, Texas. Excuse me. We've got one in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania as well, and I'm missing one. I know I am. Harmony will update me, I'm sure. But go to realityapologetics.com and sign up for one of those conferences. They're really, really great. Let's see. If you see any more, Harmony, just throw them up. That was great that you saw it. I'm trying to scroll through and see some questions. Dig deeper. From the Christian perspective, almost any evil act is actually good if God sanctioned it. Agree? No, I don't agree with that at all. Pine Creek, I don't. I know where you're going with it, but there with the, you'll probably bring up the slaughter of the Canaanites and the Old Testament God and all that, and I don't think you have an argument there. Honestly, I think that when we discuss this, number one, I think we drastically underestimate the what that culture looked like at that time. I think that if a lot of us were in the midst of the Canaanite people, we would be crying out for justice. It's really interesting, actually, in this conversation, Pine Creek, because in one aspect we cry out for justice. When we see injustices happening around us, we want them righted, right? We want them corrected when we see injustices. But then there's this huge injustice that's happening with the Canaanites, where they are literally burning babies alive every minute of every day on an altar to their idol, their false god. We have a culture that is so depraved and gnarly, and God enacts justice on that people. And then I also think that there's an argument to be made. I think Paul Copan makes this argument. I don't know where I'm necessarily at with this, but Paul Copan would say that there's a fair amount of hyperbole that's going on in the text there, where kill every man, woman, and child is it's an overstatement that didn't happen. I don't know. But I know that I also know that God is the creator and sustainer of life, and God, no matter what, doesn't murder anybody, because he is that creator and sustainer of life. So the immoral action of the killing that would happen would be escalated to moral, and murder. And when God commands that, it doesn't happen. It's not immoral. God is incapable of doing immoral things. But I think that it's an interesting question. It's brought up all the time. I mean, every time anybody talks on the problem of evil, you always get that Canaanite objection. It's always in there. But I think it's been asked and answered over and over and over again. And I just gave two very brief answers to them. And I just think it's curious that we cry out for justice when we see injustices all around us. We cry out for them, for justice, and for that injustice to be stopped. But then we see an example of it possibly in the biblical text, whereas there's mass injustices, and the Israelites are called on by God to bring justice to the land. But I don't know. That's just one example. I mean, one explanation of it. Let's see here. Don't pull this one down, Harmony. Let's see. Why do you feel like the existence of something in the universe rather than nothing is in support of the existence of God or gods? Well, the very fact that there is something begs the question, where did it come from? Right? So, I mean, if there was nothing, we wouldn't ask the question, obviously. But that there is something, we have to ask that question, that it's crying out for that, So why do I feel that the existence of something in the universe rather than nothing is support? I think, I gave the argument why the existence of something, it's the Kalam argument, right? Why the existence of something rather than nothing points to the existence of God, because when you start thinking about what brought this something into existence, it has to have certain qualities, right? It has to have immensely powerful. It has to be outside time, space. It has to be immaterial. And as I said in the brief talk that I was given, on this subject, it starts to look an awful lot like God, So it's not so much that because there's something. How about this? I'll say it this: because there's something, we ask the question, where did it come from? And when we seek the answer to that question, that big holy cow question, it points, I think, directly to the existence of a creator. So I hope that answers your question, Gizarro. I hope. Thanks, Harmony. You see so much more than I do, Harmony. I'm just trying to scroll through these. I hope that the comments don't go away, because I'd really like to follow this conversation that's happening. Why is there something rather than nothing? Ontological argument. Yeah, that's good. The ontological argument is one of the arguments. I'm just, like I said, I'm transparent, man. I don't use it. I don't fully I understand the premises of it, I think. I mean, logically speaking, I understand them. I understand what they're getting at, but I don't use it. It's so confusing to me. But I think in certain instances, there's has a certain power. But John, oh wait, I know you, John. I think I need to make my screen bigger so I can see you bigger. I think we've met. Anyways, I feel like we've met, John. Anyways, it's you can go to the ontological argument, absolutely, and read up on it. Oh, here's Kevin. Hey, Kevin, how are you, man? Thank you so much for your support, brother. Kevin is a really good friend of mine. Used to go to my last church. And anyways, he asked this question: if there's nothing and we perceive something, who created our perceptions? Well, why? How can we have perceptions? Right? Because perceptions tell us something, right? Perceptions tell us that we have a conscience. Something is doing the perceiving. So if we're perceiving something, it's not just a material. There's more. It's immaterial. There's more than the material going on, But that's a great question to ask an atheist. If there's nothing and we perceive something, who created our perceptions? That's right. Good job, Kevin. I think that's good. Let's see here. I'm going to read this one because I just don't. Me killing a person with a sword is evil, but if God truly commanded me to do it, then it's good, right? I mean, this is a hard one, dude, right? I mean, if God truly commanded you to do it, there's reasons for it. Absolutely. There's reasons for it. And his ways are higher than my ways, and I don't understand that. Now I know now it's complicated though. This is where it's a really interesting conversation. I feel like we don't allow, and I don't have enough time to do this because I got to be wrapping up. But if you're going to ask the question, Pine Creek, if you're going to ask the question, that means you have to avail me to my worldview, the totality of my worldview, and that includes the knowledge of my God and who He is. And I know my God's character, and I know what He would and would not ask of me. And so if all of a sudden I start hearing voices, I am God, go kill your wife, I know that that's not God, because that's not the God that I serve, right? And can I see instances? Sure, I see them clear as day in Scripture. But it would have to be I'd have to see it played out, But I think oftentimes when we have this discussion, it's in such a short period of time, and oftentimes the opposing person, the atheist or whoever that's asking the question of the Christian, you don't allow us complete access to our worldview and God. You want a quick, simple answer, and and that's a hard one to give, So, but these are hard questions. They're hard questions. So. Let's see here. Kevin, Joseph was pushed into a hole and it was good. You know what? Like right there is a fantastic example of how what man would what's the scripture? It's that what man intends for evil, God uses for good. And that comes at the end of an awful life of Joseph, where he got abandoned and his own brothers tried to kill him. They threw him in the hole. He got sold into slavery. He rose through the ranks and ended up getting sold out by Potiphar's wife, thrown in the brink again. Then raises up again, becomes the under ruler of pretty much the world at that time. And all with the intention of, and then it says right after Joseph, he meets with his brothers and he says, what man intended for evil, God intended for good, or used for good. It explains why, Joseph was used to save a nation. So I think that's a great example, Kevin. I'm glad that you brought that up. It's a really good example. All right, Harmony, I don't think you see any of the questions, and so I'll thank everybody, and then if you see another, oh man, there is more. I gotta raise this. I'm getting old, guys. This is not good. If morality is based on God's nature, what is God's nature based on? Are the attributes that comprise God's nature arbitrary, or are there reasons why He has the attributes He has? Yeah, these are great questions. Holy smokes. Okay. So each and every one of God's attributes is essential to God. You start removing an attribute and it's no longer God. So I'd say that God's nature isn't based on anything outside of Himself. Nothing outside of Himself. He is a self-contained God. It's not based on anything except for His goodness, His righteousness, His holiness, His justice, His all of His attributes, are the attributes that comprise God's nature arbitrary, or are they? Yeah, of course there's a reason. And I think that's kind of like I alluded to I answered this part of the question, I think, when I started actually the answer. It's that they're essential to God's nature. No, they're not arbitrary. There's nothing arbitrary about God. God is the uncreated creator. He is who He is. He's the great I am. And He's always existed, and He's always existed as He is. He's never changed, and each and every one of His attributes are integral to His being. So you can't so when I say God, it's there's a definition to that. I mean an actual being, an actual God. And He looks and acts and is a certain way, and you start changing that, He's no longer, at least the God that I'm talking about. He might reflect the God a different God or another God. But occasional skeptic, I think that's a good question, man, or girl. I don't know. But yeah, his attributes, there's nothing arbitrary about God, nothing. And his attributes are key to who he is. They're central. And yeah. Harmony, you see any more? I'm gonna, guys. I really do want to thank you. It's been over an hour. Yikes, that you've been here with me, and it wasn't very to the point. I know. I'm gonna. My boss is gonna tell me that too, but that's okay. I had a good time with you guys, and I'm so grateful that you guys tuned in. So thanks for watching again. Make sure that you guys go to str.org and track with what we're doing. Make sure you guys go to Reality Apologetics. realityapologetics.com. Get to one of the conferences all over the country, and with that, guys, I'm gonna sign off. And I'm Jon Noyes with Stand to Reason, and this was To the Point. I'll see you next month, where we're going to be doing To the Point again, and I think it's, oh my gosh, I forgot again. Harmony will tell me if we wait 2 seconds. Harmony will tell me. To the Point. I just did atheism. It might be Problem of Evil. It's September. It could be Problem of Evil. So anyways, I'll be back the last Wednesday of every month. I'm right here. Feel free to look at me on social media and friend me. And suicide. Next month is Suicide Prevention Month, guys. Huge. It's big. So suicide. I'm going to be doing talking on suicide. So please tune in. I'd love to chat about this really important topic with you here at To the Point. I'll see you next month, the last Wednesday of the month at 6 o'clock. I'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.